Hello everyone, it is a pre-recorded look at astrology for the week of June 16th through 22nd, 2025. I am going away for a week and going to be primarily offline, but the bags are packed. I always seem to do this when I'm like getting ready to go to the airport. And if my dog starts freaking out because he's already seen the suitcases, you know. So let's sort of jump into this week, make it pretty concise and short and sweet. And I will say that the middle of June was always something on my radar for this year. When I sit down for the year ahead, I look at the usual suspects. I look at the new and the full moons. I look at, okay, what bigger planets are changing signs this year, where are the eclipses, and where are the inflection points for the year? Well, it turns out that the middle of June is one of those inflection points. Partly because, one, we are at something called the midpoint of the eclipses. And this is a little bit of a technical point, but it's something that I don't hear other astrologers talk about, but I've seen it over and over again. It's totally a thing. We get 3 months after a lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse. We get 3 months before a lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, midpoint of the eclipses. And things kind of get a little bit interesting. It's like the plot suddenly changes. All you do is look at the news. So on a personal level, it's like something was seeded in March. That's when we had eclipses. And it might be that whatever was seeded in March is now beginning to come into view. Or maybe something that happened in March is now the continuation of the story. It's going to be particular to your own life. And this week, we are coming into, we are actually coming off of a couple of tense aspects. We had Sun square the lunar nodes on Friday, June 13th. This was right after a Sagittarius full moon with Jupiter square Saturn. The Jupiter square Saturn aspect was exact yesterday, well, just not yesterday as I record this, but yesterday as you watch this, June 15th. And also a pretty tense Mars square Uranus, if I'm being completely honest. So we go into this week where those energies are still with us, even though the aspect was yesterday or a couple of days before. And we are going into the end of Gemini season this week. But we also have one more aspect, which is Jupiter square Neptune. And it sort of builds this story about Jupiter and Saturn and the square, which is actually, to be honest, been since last year. But in Cancer and Aries, where Jupiter and Saturn are right now, these are signs of initiation. Initiation means something wants to initiate, something wants to start, something wants to come into your life. So that's another reason why I looked at the middle of June. I'm like, what's going on? Because it may mean that something wants to start, and something that perhaps has its roots in last year, but now it has a chance to really take shape and take form, because Saturn is the planet of manifestation. Something wants to become real. Jupiter is the desire, it is the need for more. Both Jupiter and Saturn are these two planets that really shape and build the external container of our life. Neptune, on the other hand, is a newer addition to astrology. I say newer because it was discovered in the 1840s, but from the perspective of the ancients, they didn't know Neptune. And Neptune works a little bit differently than these planets. It works on a different plane. And Neptune dissolves the boundaries between our physical plane and our non-physical plane. It sensitizes, it sometimes can hypersensitize, it can make us feel the highest of the highest, lowest of the lows. But Neptune's role is to help to reveal our universality. It's a little bit of an esoteric point. So how do we sort of see how this is working within this week? It's like things are happening, and it could even just be something pretty low scale in your life. But there is a tension point, but also an opportunity for you to open up to something that maybe takes you beyond yourself in a positive way. You're able to have compassion about something that maybe has been harder for you to have compassion about. You've been able to open your heart about something that maybe it's been a little bit difficult to see something from a different perspective, or to open your heart, for example. And Jupiter is faith. It's not just the faith of religion, it's the faith to get out of bed in the morning, it's the faith that everything will work out. So there is a little bit of a friction point with this idea of faith this week. Do we have faith that things will work out? Do we have faith in something better for our lives and better for ourselves, for example. So there's like big points that are being activated this week. It's just myself as an astrologer and this eclipse energy, the nodes that are being activated, plus the Mars square Uranus. And Mars is the driver of Saturn now in Aries, what's called the ruler of Saturn in Aries. It could be a little volatile. So what do we do with volatile astrology? I know that that's a word where you're just like, I don't like the word volatile. But we have to understand that there are times where the sky looks a little bit more combustive than usual. That's this time. What do you do with it? Combustive astrology, I think it invites us to really be present with ourselves. To be present with ourselves, if we know things are a little tense, then we do not speed into something, for example, that might create problems. We take a moment, we reflect, we cool down, we, get some quiet time, we go for a walk, whatever it is, to really sit and listen with yourself and sort of to listen for your higher guidance. Because the volatile energy, when we are not present with ourselves and we are with people who are not present with themselves, that's where things can get a little bit naughty, shall we say. So you can use this energy to slow down, to bring consciousness to this energy. And then if something is pushing on a button, sit with what that button is, because maybe you might get a light bulb about why something is either activating something within you or even antagonizing you. So this is where volatile astrology can be a positive catalyst. It can be a catalyst for growth and transformation. It can help us to see things that we don't typically see, because as human beings, we just typically want everything normal and quiet. Don't, tell me everything's going to be okay, Katie. Like, that's the astrology that I want. But we don't, kind of live in those times. We live in the times where it's about really pushing on something to get us to see things differently. I don't know, maybe you see things differently than I do. So this is a week. It's interesting that I'll be away. This is a week, and maybe that's a good sort of personal share. It's not that I planned it this way, but I know as an astrologer that this is astrology, especially that Mars square Uranus. I'm a Scorpio. It's pushing on buttons, and I need to be present with myself. I need to be present with what's coming up and use it as an opportunity to change something or transform something. That is the role of the outer planets, their evolutionary nature, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Because as human beings, we typically we choose the safe path. Safe is great. Safe, 9 times out of 10, we need to be on the safe path. The safe path keeps us safe. But this isn't about safety. This is about growth. And so to go into this week and to really contemplate what it means to grow. Jupiter's not in Cancer. Jupiter as a planet that makes us desirous of growth and new horizons and new beginnings. That energy is also present with us as well. If you desire growth and something more out of your life, then what needs to change? And that might be a way in which we sit with this volatile astrology this week. As I said earlier, Gemini season is coming to an end, and on the 20th, practically the 21st, it will be late, at least here on the East Coast of the United States, the sun will go into Cancer. So every time the sun goes into Cancer, that is the solstice. I got clocked by somebody. It's like, oh, you didn't mention that the solstice was happening in June. I didn't think I had to, because I thought we all knew that the sun going into Cancer was the solstice. But hey, when the sun goes into Cancer, it's the solstice. It's the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. It is the winter solstice for those our friends in the Southern Hemisphere as well. And just, to kind of continue the thought, when the sun is going into Libra, it's the equinox. When the sun is going into Aries, it's also the equinox, just spring or autumn, depending on where you are in the world. Anyway, so the other thing about this week, it's not just about the solstice, it's not just about the things that I've been talking about, but the other thing that really I was circling in my head as an astrologer when I looked at the astrology this week is that you really, and this is maybe more how your astrology sausage gets made, and especially if you, especially if you are looking to learn more astrology, here's your pointers. Pay attention to the lunar cycle. pay attention to Saturn. Always pay attention to Saturn. And pay attention to Mars. Mars is also where things are really happening. Like, you know, when people come to me and they're like, what's going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see what Mars is. Let's see where Saturn is. Mars changing signs is always something to sort of take note of. Now, Mars has been 6 months, which is not usual, in Leo. Normally, Mars is in a sign for 6 weeks. It was in Leo, plus or minus, because it was in and out of Cancer, for 6 months because it had the retrograde in December going into the end of February. So Mars going into Virgo is like, okay, now the outer planets are now getting some new material, because even Venus was retrograde. We had a Mercury retrograde. But Mars going into Virgo, it goes into the sign where the north node of the moon is, where the eclipses are. And even though we are not having eclipses right now, Mars is activating eclipse energy. It activates, eventually, it will take a few weeks, it activates the energy of both the lunar eclipse on March 14th of this year. I think that was 25 degrees, 24 degrees. And also the solar eclipse to come at 29 degrees on September 21st. Mars activates seeds. Mars is that, you know, there's a reason Mars is the masculine symbol, because Mars inseminates the seeds that the eclipses had seeded. And I've seen it over and over again that Mars on eclipse degrees can really activate the energy of the eclipses. And that's June and July. We have Mars also activating eclipse degrees on the other side of the sky, because we also have eclipses in Pisces. We have the eclipse in Pisces around 25 degrees of Pisces on September 17th last year. And also Mars activating the September 7th lunar eclipse. And I think that's like around 10 degrees. Don't have it right here, right now. So it says that there's a lot of back and forth in the sky thematically between Virgo Pisces. Virgo and Pisces are these signs that on one hand want to learn. Virgo wants to learn about the sort of the day-to-day world. It's more of a mundane sign. But Pisces wants to learn about the world and the universe, and it wants to go beyond this world. It's the last sign of zodiac. It's ruled by Jupiter. It's a very spiritual sign. It can at least be a very spiritual sign. And so we might have a June and July that's pressing on existential questions. Why am I here? What is this all for? What are we doing? Virgo is more no nonsense. It's like, okay, like we can talk about this forever, but what are we going to do about it? But Pisces is also like, you know, look, and it wants to advocate. It wants to really tell, you know, show things and make the world bigger for people and illuminate something. So that might be one of the areas that we are seeing very active in our life. And especially if we are Virgo Pisces or Virgo Pisces rising, June and July might be, and August and September might be interesting times. And then Mars is also going to activate. Well, Saturn's not Saturn's not in Pisces anymore, but it's like Mars is sort of laying the groundwork for some astrology that we will see end of August, beginning of September. It's less than a month from now that Uranus goes into Gemini. And Gemini is a fellow mutable sign, so we won't have an exact Mars-Uranus square. That's actually right now, but it will be sort of picking up the energies throughout July. So I'm just, you know, kind of flagging that as an astrologer, but that's July. We'll talk about that later. But to go back to this week, you know, that's sort of why I sort of was like, what's going on in June? Because June is hot, air quotes, hot energy. And it wants to create something, it wants something to manifest. And so the question is, what does that mean for us? It's, you know, there's things that we can control, there's things that we can't control. But I think that, again, to go back to an earlier point, when we are present with ourselves and we're present with the things that are being activated within, our emotions that are coming up, and it gives us a chance to perhaps not be so quick-tempered with some of this astrology. Because when we are quick-tempered, that's when things can get really very fast, very hot, very fast. for example. So that's this week. Sort of in a nutshell, I will say by the time we get to the 22nd, we will have Sun square Saturn, which is interesting because this is Sun square Saturn with Saturn now in Aries. By the end of this week, we have the Saturn energy, and Saturn is like, what are we doing? We need to make some commitments. This is the opening Saturn square. In a way, it kind of frames this new Saturn and Aries era that we were in. You can still get my webinar. I did a beautiful 3-hour webinar on Saturn and Aries. Half of that is talking about Saturn and why Saturn is such an important planet for us to pay attention to. And then what does it mean for each of the 12 zodiac signs? So you can look at that on my brand new website, empoweringastrology.com. Long story short, needed to move hosts, needed to put a lot of new frameworks in place. I guess it's very symbolic of what's happening in the astrology of the sky at the moment, just to sort of support future endeavors. So go to empoweringastrology.com. So let's just quickly go through each of the 12 zodiac signs because I gotta go to the airport. So let's start with Aries. So Mars is your planet Aries, and you probably know this by now, but in case you're tuning in for the first time, it's really important for you to understand that Mars is your planet. Whatever Mars is doing in the sky ripples back in a way to you and your life. So as I record this, I'm a little bit before this aspect, but as you're probably watching this, you're after this aspect, Mars square Uranus. And there has been a push for you, and this is sort of building off of the last 6 to 7 months, for you to clear a lot of space. That space that now Saturn, because Saturn's in Aries, now Saturn is saying, okay, we need to build on the space that you have spent the last 5 or 6 months clearing, 5, 6, 7 months. You're like, oh, that's what I was doing. Yes, that's what you were doing. And Mars square Uranus, as I record this, again, it hasn't happened, but has just happened as you watch this. It is meant to push you to get out of your own way, to either do things differently, to break free of something that's not working. Mars right now is in your 5th, and this has been really 6 months of Mars in your 5th, pretty much. So this is coming off of a lot of bigger questions about who you are, what lights you up and gives you joy and gives you passion, how do you prioritize yourself, but at the same time, what's important. And really needing to start something new in your life, especially with Saturn and Aries. And don't forget, with Saturn and Aries right now, the priority in your life is you stepping up, taking on new duties and responsibilities, getting things in order, cleaning things out, and really pushing yourself to a higher level. So as this week comes to, we get English hard. We are coming to the end of Gemini season, and then on the 20th, and for a lot of the world, it is the 21st, the sun will go into Cancer. It is the solstice. Cancer season for you is a time to focus on home and family, roots, foundation. Jupiter is now there, so you sort of come into a space that Jupiter really wants to create more within this life, or within this year. And so maybe you have an idea to move, or you want to grow your family, or you want more family in your life. And so with the sun going into Cancer on the 21st, you're going to start to get more of an idea of what this new Jupiter and Cancer era is about. When the sun goes into Cancer, it will make a square to Saturn. Saturn's in Aries, that's your sign. And so there might be something as you come to the weekend where you need to make some decisions, some commitments, and get very clear about something that's going to take you into the future. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus, as I record this, it's in Taurus. Taurus is your sign, so there is a sense of finally kind of getting to stretch out a little bit and to enjoy yourself a little bit. I think after this really long time of Venus being in the 12th. And that was a time when you needed to rest, recuperate, let go, but it typically wasn't where things were happening. So maybe now things are happening. This is a week where two things are happening. Well, more than two things are happening, but the sun is coming to the end of its time in Gemini season. There's been a time for you to focus on money and material matters, spending, for example. And then the sun's going to go into Cancer, which is your third sign. So Jupiter is also now there, and it will be there for a year versus the sun will be there for a month. But it reminds you that you've stepped into a time where education, learning, curiosity, travel, voice communication, starting a manuscript, taking your voice seriously, having something to say or teach will be a big focus as you go into the next year, or especially even to the next 4 weeks, because the sun will be there. When the sun goes into Cancer, the sun will square Saturn, and it's Taurus. You have started this 2-3 year chapter where you have come to the end of a cycle. And I don't know how evident that is yet, but it is a time of things coming to an end or a close. I know you're like, but I don't like that astrology. Everything has its own time. Saturn is always the planet of priority, and Saturn is prioritizing a space in your astrology that talks about letting go. You're like, great, I need to let go of so many things. But sometimes Taurus is like, I can't let go of this. If I let go of this, what do I have? Typically Taurus wants to hold on to things. It doesn't have to be material. It could be emotional. It could be spiritual baggage as well. But it is also to prioritize spirituality. To let go is to sort of not be so enmeshed in the material. It's to also open up to the spiritual as well. With the sun squaring Saturn, you may need to make some commitments. You may need to put things into focus, need to make some choices that also align with this new phase and chapter of your life, that something is coming to a close, but it's always so that something else can come into your life. What else we got? So we're also coming off of this Mars square Uranus, so it's been a little bit of a testy time for relationships. But Mars does go into Virgo this week, and Virgo is a fellow Earth sign. You go into a 6-week period where it's time for you to take your energy and to put it towards the things that light you up and give you passion and to give you joy. Maybe the next 5-6 weeks will be very creative. For some, it's romance and sort of the romance of life, and because Mars is a relationship planet, and maybe it is just to sort of have fun and to enjoy. Maybe you need to have some fun after that really long time of Venus in the 12th. But now that Saturn is in your 12th, maybe that's what Venus was doing, and Venus is your planet. It was trying to give you some pointers, trying to sort of show you the lay of the land. Because with Saturn there, it's a land that you need to discover more deeply. Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is in Cancer, I think at least until, the end of the month, so we got time. So Mercury is in Cancer, and this is a time where the lens of your ruling planet is more through a lens that's emotional and intuitive. It's more nostalgic, and with Mercury in your second sign of money and income, this could be a time when you're thinking about the past, you're thinking about what you own, and perhaps even things that have sentimental value, or maybe it's just a time for you to focus on your material needs, your material wants and desires. You're focusing on money, you're making purchases, you're making investments. Mercury is in the same sign that Jupiter is, sometimes when Jupiter is in the second sign of money and income, where it will be for you for a year. There is more spending, but it also sometimes can bring a windfall. Now, that's not a promise, but I've sometimes seen when Jupiter goes through this space that it gives more access to resources, for example. The sun will go into Cancer June 20th into 21st, and so the sun is going to give life, or sort of give its light, to a space that Jupiter and Mercury are already in. So it sort of will give you a deeper look of what this new sort of mini chapter is. Jupiter is 1-year chapters versus Saturn's 3-year chapters, of what this mini chapter is in your life, how it focuses you on money, income, and in some cases, even value and worth and self-worth and value. The other thing that's going on is that Mars gets out of Leo, but more importantly, it goes into Virgo. And Virgo is your sign of home and family, and Mars in the space starting on the 17th is not a quiet addition to the space of home and family. It may mean over the next 5-6 weeks, you need to, or you're thinking about making a move, or you're actually making the move. You did have eclipses in this space. You had a lunar eclipse back in March. You will have a solar eclipse at the end of September, September 21st. So Mars in a way is kind of advancing on a space where the eclipses have already been and will be. And sometimes that is a move. Sometimes that is a change in the residency. Somebody moves in, somebody moves out, for example. And sometimes somebody moving in is the starting of a family. It's the birth of a child. But it really depends, of course, on you and your life. But Mars is a bit of an agitator in this space. So maybe you want to use this energy to clean things out, to let things go, to clean out the cupboards, organize, purge. And that even could include preparing for a move, if that is relevant. Mars, what else we got? So we also have the sun leaving Gemini. So it's leaving your sign this week. Happy birthday up until the 20th. And the sun is going to go into your second sign of money and income. I already said that. So anyway, sorry, I'm halfway to the airport right now. You understand, you're in Gemini. But as we go into the end of this week, we do have Sun square Saturn. And that's just sort of a general time when we really need to take a step up. We need to make commitments. We need to be more of the adult, more of a mentor, more of an authority. So there might be a lot that's being asked of you to sort of step into these spaces as you go into the weekend. Cancer, happy early birthday, Cancer. The sun goes into your sign the end of the 20th into the 21st for the rest of the world. And it is the solstice, but it's also the start of your birthday season. And your birthday season also includes now Jupiter in Cancer. So if you remember, on the 9th, Jupiter went into Cancer, where it will be for a year. Now, there's a lot of astrologers out there that are sort of making these gold-plated promises. And I'm not that astrologer. I do feel in general that Jupiter can bestow grace and can sometimes get us out of sticky situations. And it's generally the planet that you want in your sign, unless you're trying to be on a diet, because then Jupiter is like, no, let's just enjoy life. You're like, cool, I love that. But Jupiter in your sign is trying to expand your sign. That's why I said, Jupiter wants more of things. Cancer needs care and nurturing and emotional support. And whether you have that presently in your life or you're searching for that, Jupiter in general says it's time for this to come into your life. It's time for you to be nourished, for you to be cared for. Especially if you are Cancer rising, it's the start of a new cycle and a time where you might feel very open-hearted, very generous, a sense of confidence and wanting to really go out into the world. When the sun goes into Cancer, it will activate this energy. So you'll have more of a, maybe not a little clearer view of what this is, but maybe you might start to feel it. You might start to feel it in your heart. I always think of the Ace of Cups in tarot when I think of Jupiter and Cancer, the sense of fulfillment or filling our cup. When Jupiter goes into Cancer, however, it made a square to Saturn. That happened yesterday as I post this. And so it's Jupiter in Cancer, yes, but it comes with the side of Saturn. It says you want these things in your life. What are the steps that you're going to take in order to make it happen? Saturn is in Aries, your career sign. It's not just career, it's your public life. It's the role that you play in the world. And Saturn is asking you, or perhaps demanding, where Saturn is saying now it's time to take a step up in your life, to take on new duties and responsibilities, to take duties and responsibilities seriously. So if you have faith, or you have this vision, or you're ready to take the sort of set sails and go off on a new adventure, Saturn is asking you to be very practical and focused and future-minded about it. Jupiter is also square Neptune. It might also be a time when you're feeling very intuitive or very emotional. Just give it grounding. Allow yourself to feel, but don't feel like you need to be pulled away by it. Also this week, Mars goes into Virgo. Virgo is your third sign. So it moves into a space where you, over the next 6 weeks, it might be very busy for the next 6 weeks. You might have things that are just like a lot of things that are going on. But Mars in this space is also the focus is on voice communication and how you think and listen and learn. I realize at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming up on summer. And so this is typically a time where there is a lot of movement, there is travel. But this is also a time when Mars is in this space where the action and the initiation and the drive is also put towards learning. And so you may be taking classes, you may be reading a lot. It may be a time for you to get, sort of expand your point of view and to expand your education. And Mars is going to be activating eclipse energy. Now for you, Cancer, the eclipses are more in spaces that are about education and travel, faith and philosophy. And so that might be a space where you're really seeing your life wants to move, but more along the lines of education and travel over the next few months. But like I said, Jupiter in your sign, it's like, oh, finally, like I can just start something new. I can go off and start a new cycle. And it's not to take away from that confidence. It's not to take away from that desire. So really enjoy Jupiter in Cancer. But I think with Mars and even Saturn, it also wants the practical, grounded stuff happening alongside. Leo, the sun is your planet, and the sun is about to leave Gemini and go into Cancer. So it will go into Cancer on the 20th or 21st for the rest of the world. And for you, Cancer season represents the end of your personal zodiac calendar. When the sun gets into Cancer, you are coming to the end of a cycle. This is a cycle that began with your birthday season. And so sometimes when the sun gets into the space, it's a time to reflect. Where have I been? What has happened? What's happened over the last year? What are the highs and lows? What are the highlights? Let's look at the reels. And the sun going into Cancer also brings you into a space that is about your spirituality. You inherently leave behind the physical world when the sun brings you into your 12th. It is a time to rest, to recuperate, to dream, to intuit, and to meditate, for example. The sun joins a space that Jupiter is now in, and Jupiter actually loves being in this space. So the sun is kind of like joining up with Jupiter, and it's reminding you, Leo, that you've entered, at least for the next year, where spirituality and faith and sort of a sense of mission and fulfillment are things you're really working towards. Like the growth, because wherever Jupiter is, that's an area that's typically we want more of, wants to grow. The growth is happening on a level that you can't quite see. It could be your soul, it could be your spirit, it could be your sense of meaning and purpose in life. These are things that you can't physically touch or quantify, but that's where the sun and Jupiter are. So this is all preparing you, of course, for the sun going into Leo next month, but even next year when Jupiter goes into Leo as well, next end of June. So this week we also have Mars going into Virgo. So you had Mars in Leo for about 6 months. This is plus or minus the times when Mars was in and out of Leo into Cancer. But I think it's important to go back and to reflect, because during this time, and Mars first went to Leo at the beginning of November of 2024, Mars has been basically in an opposition to Pluto. That last opposition was at the end of April, so that's 6 weeks ago. But what was happening is the last 6 months have been trying to really be what's the word I'm looking for? really push you to make some changes, to clear things out. It's push buttons. It's even volatile at times because Mars and Pluto can be a little bit volatile depending on the circumstances. But it's to look back at the space, even if that space is emotional and psychic, the space that you have cleared over the last 6 months. Mars, when it was in Leo, it was about you, what you want, your needs, your desires, you taking the lead, you feeling like you have the hand on the steering wheel, so to speak. It hasn't been the greatest negotiator, but maybe that's exactly what you needed, because it's you needed to focus on you and not something else. Mars going into Virgo, Mars now pulls the energy into your second sign of money, income, material stability, and security. So that's for the next 6 weeks will be where a lot of the action is happening. It could be increased spending. It could be needing to make investments in your life to gather resources, to really focus on your material life and like, is my material life good, for example. But keep in mind that with Mars in Virgo, Mars is entering a space starting the 17th that there have been eclipses. For Leo, a lot of this eclipse energy has been financial in nature. Not 100% for all Leos or Leo risings, but for some it has been encompassing financial themes, the purchase of properties, purchase of investments and assets, or to look at debt, to look at taxes, to look at estate planning and legacies. Like, that's very Scorpionic. But it's just been part of the time. And for some Leo risings, it's been more about the value and worth and safety, stability. Like, do I feel safe? Do I have what I need? But also deeper themes about intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. So Mars is sort of pushing on those buttons. Mars is an important planet in your astrology because it does rule your home environment. So this is why time might lean more on purchases and investments for the home. But Mars might also be bringing up some deep stuff about family, the past, memories. So sometimes we may feel something, but we don't realize that it actually has deep roots. And in some cases, maybe not even roots to this lifetime, or even, could be an ancestral story. But that said, what else we got? Jupiter does make a square to Saturn, and then also a square to Neptune. And for you, this is really more about these questions of faith and truth and meaning, and why am I here? What is this all for? And I need to sort of really figure something out. And that's, especially as you get to the end of the week, you need to make some concrete decisions and commitments. Virgo. So Mercury is your planet. Mercury is spending the rest of June in Cancer. And for you, Cancer is a planet that takes you... Wait, gotta do some quick astrology. Yes. No. Sorry, I gotta count backwards. Pisces. This is what happens when you try to do this with... maybe we'll pause the recording. No, can't. Pause. Unpause. I was right. Like, I just, I was like, I'm Cancer is the 11th, but I was like, wait a second, that's not possible. But anyway, I tripped myself up. So your planet is in Cancer for the rest of the month, and Cancer is your 11th sign of friends and community, your sense of belonging and connection. So it's a time for you to really put your energy towards the groups, the communities that you are involved in. Cancer has a big heart, and certainly with Jupiter there, you may be going into the rest of the month and even longer, because Jupiter will be in there for a year, where you're thinking about bigger issues, social causes, society, humanity, the collective, like, how do I get involved? How do I help people? And so this might be, with the Mercury there, a little bit more of a practical time, and especially with the Sun going into Cancer on the 20th or 21st, depending on where you are in the world. The Sun is really going to illuminate more this chapter in your life. Now, Jupiter is a major planet in your astrology. It governs your home environment and governs relationships. And so Jupiter square Saturn has really been, even since last week, pressing upon you to put things into a framework, to get clear, to make a commitment, to get serious about something. Neptune also, Jupiter square Neptune, that sort of blurs a little bit of the stuff, but I think really Neptune opens up the vision in the field. It's like, it's not just helping your community, it's really to go bigger than that, beyond that. Like, go, like, what is this all for? Why am I here? Like, Neptune can be a very existential planet. And also it could be a time when you are feeling a lot of emotions, for example. What else is going on this week? Mars is going to Virgo. So you have had Mars in Leo, which is your 12th sign, for the better part of 6 months, plus or minus. But Mars, when it's in the 12th, it really pulls you behind the scenes. You need to retreat. You need to, lay low. You sometimes need to rest. You don't have a lot of energy. Mars is the energy at the physical plane, so that's why we typically don't have a lot of energy when Mars goes through this space. But Mars also says that the action needed to be beyond this world, to really open up, to meditate, to reflect, to really try to reconnect to something greater. But with Mars going into Virgo on the 17th, Mars goes into a space, your space, Virgo, where it will be for six weeks. Mars typically is very self-oriented, self-oriented when it's in our sign. And it might mean that you really are feeling this push to take the lead, take command, go after what you want, maybe not what other people want. And because Mars is not a negotiator, and it is not a time for you to be timid. And sometimes Virgo can be a little bit putting other people's needs first. It's one of the default patterns for the sign. But Mars in Virgo does not put the needs of others first. It takes action. It puts things in order. Like, the beauty of Virgo is that it can run things. And so with Mars in Virgo, you're really running things. And so maybe that's where the command lead takes in. But it can be a little hot-tempered, so just sort of giving you fair warning, because if you've been suppressing something, Mars does not like anything to be suppressed, and suddenly things are being blurted out, for example. But it is really activating this dynamic time in your life, Virgo, because you have eclipses in Virgo and Pisces, and it just might mean that June and July, and even September, are really big months for you. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is still in Taurus, and I think it's in Taurus until the beginning of July. So we have time. It goes into Gemini on July 4th. So for you, Libra, Venus is in a sign that it rules. It loves Taurus. It's in a space that on one level is financial in nature, and so maybe you're really focused on financial issues, estate planning, wealth, taxes, that sort of thing, the resources, the things that you own with a partner, for example. But then Venus is also in a space where it's about intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. It's bringing up a lot of emotions. And so this is a month for you to go into very deep parts of yourself, to communicate how you feel, to open up to a partner, or to really look at your life from the lens of like strategy, because sometimes when Venus is in this space, we need to really strategize about the future. That said, the bigger news this week is Mars leaves Leo, and Mars is a relationship planet for you, and it goes into Virgo. And for you, Libra, Virgo is your 12th sign. So in 2025, the eclipses are in Virgo, Pisces. It's been about, except for that eclipse in Aries, but it's been mostly, or will be mostly, if not relationships, Aries, then about really your spirituality, these deeper themes, what I believe in, what I stand for. Mars going into Virgo pulls the energy of Mars into a space that brings you to the end of your astrology. It's about letting go. It's about things transitioning within a relationship, or even things transitioning within your life. Typically, Mars does not have a lot of energy when it's in this space. You need to rest, recuperate, go with the flow, and also use the Mars, which is a planet of action and drive, to listen to your intuition. It has been 2 years. Mars is always on a 2-year cycle since Mars was in this space. So maybe it's worth going back to 2023, and then 2023, summer 2023, or August July, August, September. I have to look back 2023 and what was going on. But if you feel that there's a little bit of a vibe shift as you go into the middle of the week, it's because Mars is trying to get you to slow down and also to listen to your higher guidance and your higher wisdom. We are leaving behind Gemini season this week, and then the sun will go into Cancer on the 20th or 21st, depending on where you are in the world. It is the solstice, and the sun is going into your 10th sign of career, your public life, duties and responsibilities. And so you enter a season, Cancer season, where it is about your world, the role that you play in the world, and even your professional life. But Jupiter is there now, and it's a time for you to grow your professional life, to grow your ambitions, to grow your place in the world, or at least to desire more. And so I realize that we are going sort of in a time where typically people are on holidays, vacations, at least it's kind of coming up on summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. We don't always think that this is the time to really focus on your professional life, but this is your astrological time. So if you need a new career or a new job, or you need to get noticed for something, certainly the end of this week throughout the rest of June and the beginning of July is your time. As you get to the end of the week, the sun will square Saturn. Saturn is newly in Aries, which is relationships, and it's really trying to get you to make some serious decisions about relationships, either in general or relationships as a whole, and something that really reflects this new chapter and this new stage that you are stepping into. Scorpio. Mars is your planet, and Mars is coming off a pretty hot square to Uranus as I record this, and you start the week with this energy that is about breaking through something. And I want to say that even though that the aspect was exact yesterday, because it's important to sort of see how it's showing up in your life right now. Where do you feel challenged? Where do you feel like you need to do something differently, maybe advocate for yourself differently, maybe do a relationship differently? Mars has been in Leo for 6 months, better part of 6 months. So you're beginning to come off a time that's been about taking the lead and responsibilities and duties, your public life. And so this square is between you and duties and responsibilities, but also other people in your life, as well as this sort of larger chapter of your life for the past 6 years that has been about changing and switching up relationships. Mars on the 17th, it goes into Virgo, and that kind of gives you a breath of fresh air because Mars has pretty much been in Leo since the beginning of November. Normally Mars spends 6 weeks in a sign, and as opposed to 6 months. We did have that retrograde in December through February. So it's going to be a vibe shift, a tone shift with Mars going into Virgo starting on the 17th. You, because it takes the energy of you, Scorpio, or the energy of your chart, Scorpio rising, it points it towards the 11th for the next 6 weeks. The 11th is it's the world in the sense from the perspective of community. Your community, your place in the community, your friends, your social network, but also this place that talks about the world and social issues and social causes. And so depending on who you are, it's my doggy, it's a time to really focus on the future and the people that are around you and where you're sort of steering your life towards. It is to hope and dream. It is to strategize for the future, but it also perhaps is a time to give back and to help and to serve, because sometimes Mars, especially through Virgo, is a very strong sign around service. On some level, Mars in Virgo does put the energy of your sign the energy into a sign that's about health and wellness. So health and wellness, or general health and wellness, might be a focus for the next 6 weeks. Mars will activate eclipse energy, even though the eclipses are not in Scorpio and Taurus, but in a way Mars sort of pulls you into the mix with the eclipses, and so it puts the energy where a lot of the action this year, a lot of the focus and the change has been along the lines of your community, your friends, the groups that you're involved in, and Mars might heat that up. So see what's really beginning to come to the forefront as you go through the rest of this week and even into July. Also going on this week, we have the sun coming to the end of its time in Gemini, which happens to be your 8th. Perhaps has been a little bit of a soul-searching, navel-gazing time for you. And then when the sun goes into Cancer, it goes into a space where it joins Jupiter. And Jupiter will be in Cancer for a year. The sun will be in Cancer for just 1 month, but the sun will give light to Jupiter. And you are in a larger period of your life. This is just for a year, though, where it is about looking out towards the world. It is about travel, exploration. There might be a lot of travel over the next 12 months. If it's not foreign travel, then it's long distance travel. If it's not physical travel, it is the desire to know more about the world, to focus on your education, perhaps to go back to school, to share something, to speak about something, to publish something, to philosophize about something, because this is a space that we're seeking and exploring. And you may feel this huge desire to seek and to explore, to try to find something. I realize something is I can't quantify that for you, because that's the thing about seeking and exploring. It's like we're feeling like this need to go out and to find something. But whatever that is unique to us. It's like we're searching for a truth, for example. But as we go into the end of this week, the sun will make a square to Saturn. And I just want to put that on people's radars, because when the sun is square Saturn, we need to take a step up. And let's not forget that Saturn is now in Aries, and for Scorpio, this might be a time where you need to take your physical health and wellness seriously. So the sun square Saturn is like, okay, now it's time to do this. For some, it is about work and projects or service and helping other people, and really talking about why you want to help other people. Like, what is the philosophy in this mission or sense of advocacy that you want to put into the world? But Saturn is to make it real, to make it concrete, and for you to make a commitment. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet. It is a kind of a big time to be a Sag or Sag rising right now. We are coming off of a week where Jupiter squared Saturn. Jupiter rules you. Saturn is like the planet of taking the next step up in your life. It's growth, it's maturity, it's being the mentor, it's sort of getting focused and organized about things. And then we also have Jupiter squared Neptune this week. If Saturn is very real world, Jupiter is very otherworldly. It's kind of a funny addition. It's like, on one hand, it's so much about your real world and like your day-to-day life. And on the other hand, it's like things are like trying to open you up and expand your horizons and make you really intuitive. Pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to your intuition, but also remain grounded. Saturn has since moved out of your sign of home and family. It will get back there, but on some level, with Jupiter square Saturn, it's like really pulling at the bigger questions of your life right now. Where is home and who is home? What is this all for? Where am I going? I realize these are things that are very particular to your life and something that you need to really reflect upon, for example. This week we also have Jupiter, which is your planet. It's now in Cancer as of last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point. No, last week. And Jupiter is now in a space called your 8th. The 8th is saying to you that over the next year, it's a time to really look within, to really question and to search yourself and to face yourself, and to really, a lot of the growth over the next 12 months is going to be emotional. Like, not just like, oh, these are my feelings, but like the deep emotions. So to sort of see what's starting to brew, especially as you get later this week with the sun in Cancer, because that's going to give more of a vision or a light, or like turning on the light to what Jupiter is inspiring and motivating you about. Jupiter is you, Jupiter is family and home. Jupiter will square Neptune this week, so that's the sensitivity. But we do have the sun square Saturn as we get into the 22nd. And so sometimes that's a need to really get clear about something, to put things in order, to put things in focus, to make a commitment, for example. But in general, this is a big time, and especially with Mars going into Virgo. Virgo is your career sign. Well, it will be for the next 6 weeks. It says that the next 6 weeks for you, and this takes you into the beginning of August, are hustle time. More duties, more responsibilities, more things to do, more things to put into order. I know you're like, I don't want this, I'm so sorry. But Mars really will help you to really to show up, to be on time, and to put things into focus. Capricorn. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet, and Saturn's in Aries. So I know I asked this last week, but just a little, check in. Like, how are you doing with Saturn and Aries? Do you feel the difference? The focus, because wherever Saturn is, it is a priority and a focus. It is your planet, but it still says this is a priority and a focus for you for the next 3 years. Home and family. Every Capricorn rising will live this differently. Family means different things to you. For some people, that is a very complicated subject matter that they would prefer not to talk about. And for other people, it's a time to really settle down and be like, yes, I want to start a family. I want to put down roots. Maybe your parents need more attention, but this, just as a general focus, this is where your energy, at least for the next 3 months, and definitely 2026, 7 and 8, this is where your focus is. So have you felt that shift? Jupiter is now in your sign of relationships. Jupiter, generally, this is a space where things are growing. We want more new experiences. And so to see what is happening in the relationship department, especially over the next year, but particularly when the sun goes into Cancer starting on the 20th or 21st, depending on where you are in the world, the sun will give light to Jupiter now in Cancer, and it will really mark how this is a new time, a new chapter, at least for the next year, in relationships. So on one hand, we have Saturn settling down, home and family. On the other hand, we have relationships. Sounds pretty standard and traditional. We do have Jupiter square Neptune this week, and Neptune has recently, as of March, moved into your sign of home and family. This is a much longer influence, and to be honest, longer than I actually have, because I got to get going, but Jupiter or Neptune in this space is really beginning to bring up a lot of deep emotions from the past. So really be present with what's coming up, because it's something that needs to be healed, to be let go of, and that might be starting to come up front and center this week. That said, Mars is now going into Virgo, and Virgo is your sign of faith and truth and meaning and purpose. And maybe you're looking towards the world and trying to figure out, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? And what do you think is true? Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn is in Aries. Actually, let me just quickly pause there. Resume. Gotta text my dad. Yes, because as I record this, it's always like I try to do this before vacation. Well, it's not really vacation that I'm going on, but like I gotta get to the airport. So yes, Aquarius, Saturn is your planet, and Saturn is now in Aries. Do you feel a shift? Because Pisces to Aries, two very different signs, and you had that shift back on the 24th of May. And it says that for the next 3 years, at least from the next 3 months, you are getting a glimpse of something new. Saturn in your third sign of voice and communication, how you think and listen and learn, is saying that this is a time where you need to get curious. You need to sort of look at new perspectives. You need to focus on your education. You need to take classes. You need to travel. You need to seek. You need to explore. And so this is giving you a little bit of a vision of something new. So it's just to sort of to check in and take note of it. We've got some big things this week, particularly Mars getting out of Leo, which is your relationship sign, and where Mars has been for the better part of 6 months, plus or minus. Relationships mean different things to different people. Some of us are single, some of us are in partnerships or long marriages. But this is a space that really encompasses all relationships. And so for some people, the last 6 months, there has been a big point on relationships, including major partnerships or even marriages for those for whom that is relevant. But there has been something that has been stirring and perhaps provocative around connection relationship over the last 6 months. I wanted to say that because I want you to sort of take note of it, because that's been the deeper material. That's been something that's been trying to reveal itself to you while Mars has been in Leo. But Mars changes signs this week, and it goes into Virgo on the 17th, and it goes into your 8th. Mars is the power and drive of the chart. It really shows where things are moving and where you need to take action. The 8th is where we need to face ourselves. I know you're like, I don't like that astrology. Let's send it back to the kitchen. But this is the thing. Mars is saying that for the next 6 weeks, you need to face yourself. Facing yourself means looking at the deepest parts of you. For some people, you're like, great, I got a therapy appointment tomorrow. Check. But use this time constructively. If there's something that you need to talk to somebody about or you need to open up to, this is your time, because Mars is saying it's time to take action with this part. This is a time to talk to a partner about trust and intimacy and vulnerability. It is to get into the deeper material and even questions of sexuality with some people. And for some Aquariuses, it is money, income, material stability and security, finance, assets, wealth, financial planning, legacies, estates, and also debt and taxes for those that's relevant. And so there is a sense of this emotional component, this sort of psychic landscape that you are navigating over the next 6 weeks, but also this financial landscape that you're navigating. Virgo energy typically wants things in order. If your financial life is not in order, here you go. If your emotional life is not in order, here you go. Keep in mind that in 2025, we have eclipses in Virgo. We did in March, and we will in September in Pisces. So this is a space that's already has an earmark for you to prioritize in 2025. For some of you, you're like, I already do this. I already work on myself. I already go into the deepest parts of myself. But some of you are like, there's like, I don't know if this is, I'm like, nope, Mars is really trying to give you the courage and bravery to face yourself and to go within. That said, we are going into Cancer season this week, and for you, Aquarius, Cancer is something called your sixth sign. It's health, it's wellness, it's really taking care of the day-to-day details of your life. Jupiter is there right now, and Jupiter will be there for a year versus the Sun being there for a month. So note how you feel a shift in your health, a shift in your relationship with your body. Do you feel more optimistic? Do you feel inspired to make positive changes? The Sun going into Cancer later this week, 20th or 21st, inspires you to really turn your attention towards that part of your life. Now, to be fair, the Sun and Jupiter square Saturn. And Saturn is in your third, so that might talk about a need to make some serious concrete decisions about your health, your diet, your fitness, your nutrition. And this is really to set you up for the future. Finally, Pisces. Pisces, Jupiter is your planet. So how are you feeling this shift with Jupiter now in Cancer? Cancer for you is your fifth sign of self-expression, joy, creativity, passion, doing the things you love and getting back to yourself. You're like, cool, and this is for the next year. And maybe you need this. It's been a little bit of a hard time to be a Pisces based on some things in your astrology. And Jupiter, it is square Saturn right now. So if I'm being completely honest, like there is some questions about value and worth and even self-value and worth. This is really a time for you to find the balance between your needs, your wants, and your desires, but also the things that you need to do. You know what you need to do based on your own life, of course. Jupiter is also squared Neptune this week. That's a big aspect. Doesn't happen very often. I think it happened last in 2017. So Jupiter squared Neptune might be making you feel very sensitive, very emotional. And this is something that's really trying to awaken you to something beyond yourself. Neptune is finally out of Pisces. It will go back, but we'll talk about that later. And I think this gets into more of these existential questions about your life, your physical life, your material life, your body, your relationship with your body, these sort of questions about safety and stability. And so I think with Saturn there as well, there's this sense of needing to make some concrete decisions, some concrete commitments to something. I think this will be clearer as you get into the end of this week, because Saturn is more like you need to do this. Saturn, for some of you, it's about setting a boundary, saying no to something that's actually not really supporting and nourishing your life. We do have Mars going into Virgo this week. That is a big news because Mars is your relationship planet. So Mars is the planet that heats things up, and it will be in relationships for the next 6 weeks. And so if there has been something between you and another person that's been simmering on the back burner, so to speak, Mars is like, it's now in the front burner. You need to deal with it, because wherever Mars is, that area is where we need to take action. The action for the next 6 weeks is relationships, whether that means you feel inspired to start a relationship or to really put some focus on an existing relationship, or you feel that you're in a little bit of a back and forth with somebody. Typically when Mars is in this space, it puts us a little bit on the defensive. We need to learn to negotiate. We need to listen to the needs of other people. And typically Pisces does that, but this is a time where there's a bunch of back and forth between you and another person. But maybe that's where Jupiter comes in, where you're like, I understand, but also like to prioritize the things that actually support you and nourish you, as opposed to just being in a back and forth. So there you go. That is your look at the pre-recorded look at the astrology of June 16th through 22nd, 2025. Like, I gotta go to the airport. So I appreciate you all, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.